one thought, one choice at a time. We build the collective. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Collective. We have another fantastic show for you planned out today. I am stoked. We got Dr. David Z up here. We got Gordo here. We got Josh here and Sean, of course. And I am pumped for this one. I hope y'all are too. Make sure you like the show, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, do all that good stuff. Get your emails when we go live, which is, of course, Fridays for The Collective, Wednesdays for the workshop. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, anything at all, put them out in the comment section. We can hit those throughout the show. And of course, if you have not yet, make sure you're signed up for the Reinforcement Loop. That is our weekly newsletter. It goes out. Last week's edition just went out on yesterday. And it was a gooder. I thought I did pretty well on it. That's my second edition that I've written. So it
was a good one, Chance. Well done.
Sweet. Other than that, I want to get into this, but we're going to get some intros out of the way. It's been a while. Dave, let's hit with you. Start with you. Give me a quick 10 to 15 seconds for you, where you come from, all that good stuff.
Oh man, I should have had something better prepared. Technically, I'm a doctor of physical therapy, left that whole world behind. Now I do psychedelic integration coaching, I guess would be the title. So primarily we run an online program helping people get into microdosing with mushrooms, along with shadow work, all that kind of good stuff to prep for or integrate after other bigger experiences. So I'm stoked to be here to kind of focus on the integration front, because I feel like that gets missed quite a bit. And I run some jiu-jitsu retreats and mushrooms, all that kind of stuff. But as we talked about before, that's on the back burner for now, as my wife is pregnant with kid number 2. So trying to slow down just a little bit. Thank you guys.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Although I can't think of a more interesting experience than trying to do jiu-jitsu on psychedelics. That would be
small amounts of mushrooms.
Small amounts. Yeah. Very clear on that one. Gordo, give us a quick little rundown where you're at.
Hey guys, it's Gordo giving you a shout from Moncton, New Brunswick. I spent 15 years in the military, half as a airborne light infantry reconnaissance patrolman, the other half as a special operator and joint terminal attack controller. From there, I released medically in 2021. I have a creative agency called All the Way Factory. I have a nonprofit called All the Way Foundation, which is the conduit to a documentary series, which we just finished wrapping up, filming for documentary number 2, where we took female combat veterans down to receive Ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT treatment. I guess I'll do a quick little plug as well. I'm co-founder, you guys are going to start seeing it come out, of an organization called Stronghold Wellness, which is a veteran medical navigation platform where we can hook you guys up with all the information about operator syndrome and treatment solutions.
Frickin' bam. I love it. Josh, want to give us a little rundown, 10 to 15 seconds? Who are you, where you come from? All that stuff.
Yeah, man. I'm tuning in from Richmond, Virginia area. I was a former MMA fighter, former professional MMA fighter. Those are the words. BJJ black belt for those who like to engage in such endeavors. I am the co-founder of SavageGentleman.com. We're transitioning from selling goods and kind of artifacts of masculinity and getting more into the experiential realm of exploring that, because there's a lot of guys that just haven't had the opportunity to get out and do a lot of things. And so part of the work that we're doing, which incorporates, combatives and bushcrafting and just being outdoors and in general, we've also been introducing the element of plant medicine in some of these experiences. And that's been really interesting to see how it's progressed with guys and allow them to, I guess, tap into things that otherwise weren't available to them, and see the world from a different perspective. And everything that we do is built around that. If you've never done jiu-jitsu and all of a sudden you get on the mats, your like world might be shattered in a way, because like, oh, I thought I could do this, and well, I guess you can't. And I think psychedelics have a very similar effect for people who are like, oh, I thought the world was one way, but maybe it could be different.
That's a good way of putting it. Maybe it could be different. And, as you said, not a lot of people get the experience of the outdoors. Not a lot of people get the experience of just rugged life, I guess. And I was reminded of that while I was out branding this last weekend and having the time of my life. But most people don't even know that even happens at this point. So I think you're on the right track with making sure that people get the experiences in life. This is awesome. Sean, how's life out in the mountains treating you?
Really good. So two things, just listening to the fellas right now, I'm already having thoughts. And the first thing is that, every single person on this panel is being exposed to men who are really in the game. Like we've talked about bushcraft. Josh mentioned, approaching things that perhaps are more adverse that maybe I was going to say a standard issue man wouldn't experience, because I was contextualizing that against maybe what Gordo was referencing, special operations. They're in the thick of things. And so, it doesn't really matter what kind of a man you are, honestly, what you're facing, what you haven't faced, where you're at right now, where you'll be tomorrow, all those things. Frickin' men struggle. And so that's the purpose of this episode, is to deal with not just men, but humans who struggle, irrespective of who they are and what they've done and where they're going to be tomorrow. You can be Billy Badass. You can be larger and in charger than anyone else on the planet. And at some point in your life, you're going to be in the hurt locker. And it's really just a matter of how deep that hurt locker is. And then what do you do? What do you do when you are in it? Who do you turn to? What tools do you turn to? Well, that's what this show is about today, is some tools that you can turn to if you're struggling, irrespective of who you are and what you've done.
There we go. I dig it. But you're 100% right here. I got a couple of comments before we get right into the conversation today, so I want to hit those real quick. Littlefoot says, 2 collectives in 2 days, or am I skipping a day in my brain? Either way, let's go. Yeah, it's we're back on the Wednesday, Fridays, and it's good to be back for sure. Dan C says, good morning, gentlemen. As the official conductor of the pain train, choo-choo MF's time for some ass kicking. I love it. We'll get right into it right now. So this is my first question for y'all. And before I'm going to use this as my first thoughts, where I want to set an intention ahead of this, is that after this conversation, what do you think you want people to take away about psychedelics, about plant-based medicine? What are you hoping to get across from today's conversation? I'm going to start with Josh. What do you think?
I think that the best thing that someone could take away from hopefully this conversation is understanding that it is a tool. And that it is a means to an end, not the end itself. And you see a lot of people in the psychedelic circle, and people that are on this path of spiritual enlightenment or whatever it is they're seeking, and you can kind of mistake the vehicle for the destination, right? And so, man, it is so powerful. It is so useful. It's done so much in my life, and I can see where it's helping other people. But it really is, I think, best served as a teacher and as a model for other things in your life, right? If you're a raging a-hole 90% of the time, and then you take medicine, and then for like a week you're cool, but then you go back to being an a-hole again, that medicine really did nothing. And not to say that we have to be perfect, but like, we're using it for something to understand the world in a better sense, and knowing that, entering into that, not that it's a magic bullet, that it's just going to help expand, literally it's mind expanding. It will expand your perspective and hopefully see the world and yourself clearer, and more truly, because I think that's what we struggle with, is that our lens is often clouded. And so it does work really well to clear that and allow us to see things hopefully more honestly and truly.
I really like that. Quick comments. Celtic McWalks, or Celtic McTravels now, says, great stuff, gentlemen. I am struggling with my hand, but will succeed, of course. And B-Top says, glad to be here. First time with the collective. It's good to see you. Let's go with Gordo. What do you hope? What's your intention for this episode?
Yeah, I want people to take away that psychedelics aren't a panacea. So it's not a cure-all. And the biggest issues when it comes to psychedelics is expectations versus intentions, and like what you're actually expecting out of this. And then on top of it, what is it actually going to do? So I like using steroids as an example. You can take steroids, and if you don't go to the gym, you're going to be a fatty, or nothing is really going to happen. But if you go to the gym every day, you're going to get huge. It's the same thing with psychedelics. If you just take psychedelics without intention, or without proper intentions, exactly what I said, and integration and the change like Josh was talking about, then what's going to happen? Maybe nothing. So it's not a cure-all. What you put into psychedelics is what you get out of it. And I tell everyone, you have to eat this at least halfway, if not more. So what you put in is what you're going to get out. If you don't put anything into it, you're just taking a drug.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a former recreational mushroom taker, I can tell you from my personal experience, it's just a drug if you don't really do anything with it. That is a great point. Sean, I'm going to hit you next. What do you think?
Well, I like how you started things off, Chance, with that question. What's the intention that everyone's looking at in this show today? What do you intend to achieve, or what's your own personal intention that you're seeking for yourself? So what are you trying to put out? What are you trying to take in? So that word itself, intention, there's two other words that I'm just going to attach to it, set and setting. So now we've got three words, intention, set, and setting. And now those words are kind of like adjacent to the psychedelic experience. They're words that if you've never been around psychedelics, you may never have heard set and setting before. And so I'm going to twist it up a little bit rather than talk about what my intention is. I'm just going to say that the moment that you step into or become more familiar with the psychedelic world, what it exposes is many things, not just yourself to yourself and yourself to others, but it exposes you to kind of a universe that you've never been in before, with new words, not just new experiences, new people, not just some people. It's a experience that is wrapped around an experience, if I dare say that. And it is something that unless you reach out and engage in it, you're missing like an element of the universe that is always there, but you're looking away from. And so it's like choosing to look away from the color yellow or green. I don't want green in my life. I don't want yellow in my life. Why would you actively get rid of something that can enrich your life? Why would you get rid of the color yellow? So that's what psychedelics are, in a way, to me, is another slice of the universe that is presented for all of us to accept or not. And once you step into it, that universe will provide an immense enriching experience.
Well put. Dave, what do you think?
Man, I got nothing new to add on top of all that. These eloquent people here. For one thing, I could just get lost in listening to Sean's accent through these headphones, man. I was dialed in. To your point of what I hope people take away, if I could just restate some of those things in my words, I would say journey less and integrate more. So very often people want more medicine. They go have one experience and they come home and things are great for a while, starts to deteriorate and they think they need more medicine. That's like one analogy we use is imagine you had a sick goldfish in a dirty tank. Going to an ibogaine retreat or an ayahuasca retreat is like taking that goldfish out of its environment, taking it to the vet and giving it some antibiotics. It might be that's exactly what it needs. But if you don't clean its tank, it's going to go back home and it's going to get sick again. And sometimes if all you did was clean up its environment, it might not need that medicine in the first place. And if it does still need it, it's going to have an even more dramatic and longer lasting effect. So that's how I look at things, really just saying the same things all these guys, just through my own little analogies. But that's how we look at things.
I dig it.
So, David, I got a question for you.
Please.
Did you get that analogy from somewhere else, or is that just something that has been rumbling around in your head for a while?
It came to me through the medicine. No,
that would have been great.
As far as I know, it is original. Okay. But I take credit for very few things that I come up with. So genuinely, it did come to me. I don't think I picked it up anywhere, but I'm sure it's not an original thought.
Yeah, well, it is and it isn't. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Though,
right?
I want to tell you guys my intention here too is that the reason I want to. This is our third, I think, episode we've done on psychedelics total now, and it's like the big thing I want to get is more information out to the world, because the more information you have, the better decisions you can make. Not to promote psychedelics, because for some people it may not be the tool they need, but for some, absolutely might be the tool they need. And I just want to have more information for the people out there to make better decisions rather than promote or dissuade. Either way, I just want to put that out there. So that's my big thing. And that's going to be where my questions come from a place of just information gathering. Sean, what do you got? I see you got something.
I do. And I just want to be really clear up at the front end that no one needs anything until they sit down and think about what they need. So don't listen to this show and run right out your front door and start looking for ibogaine or psilocybin or whatever. Just don't. Sit down, listen, and think for at least a day. So no one needs anything out of this show today other than some deeper thinking and what it means to you. I just want to get that up at the front end. And second, maybe apply a cautionary note at the front end as well, that psychedelics are not for kids, they're not for adults, they're not for anyone who takes them casually or frivolously or carelessly. They're just not for dabbling. And so the way that we're talking about psychedelics in this show is for more of a improving your health perspective, your mental wellness perspective, engaging in a path that is betterment rather than distraction or disappearance.
That's well said. Absolutely. The question I have for you guys right off the bat, this is the big thing I want to find out about is, what do you think we're doing well? What do you think we're doing poorly? What do you think is when you look at the world of psychedelics right now, there's a lot of stuff happening in the States. There's stuff that's been happening in other countries in Europe. There's other places that are highly restrictive. Like, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Where do you see this being beneficial in the world? Where do you see it detracting, that kind of stuff? Gordo, I'm going to start with you. You're on top. What do you got?
Yeah, brother. I think the fact that we're having this conversation is a good starting point. I'll leave. A lot of people are getting healed by it, so I think it's fine to leave it at there, and I would rather focus on the other aspects where we could be doing better. You see countries like Australia approved $734 million through Veterans Affairs for psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. That's MDMA and psilocybin, so that's fully covered by Veterans Affairs. And then you see the States pushing everything ahead. Fast track FDA, could be just Trump, orange man, doing his thing to get more votes. But we look at Canada, and it's a very confusing culture where we have such a progressive mindset when it comes to everything. And then when it comes to this one treatment modality, we are extremely far behind. The treatment modalities with psychedelics heal everybody. There is no color, race, gender, anything that it discerns or goes against. And that's something that I just wish this country would pick it up a little bit more. And then specifically around veterans, unfortunately, what I've seen is that the lack of caring for veterans or military in Canada is so substantial that in other countries, it's the thing that's progressing psychedelics forward. And in this country, it means nothing. Cancer Association, CanPACT, Cancer Psychedelic Association of Canada, just got a huge grant. So they are pushing forward, but that's for end of life distress and for cancer distress. So it's hard as the guy on the ground trying to get people to convert. We're very, very, very adverse to it in Canada, which is fine. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but let's open up the menu of treatment possibilities. And I'm pretty sure everyone's tired of the opioid crisis as well as suicide and poor mental health.
Yeah. 100%. Dave, what do you think?
Man, as far as what's going well, I'm going to second that. This conversation, the fact that you started off just by setting intentions, made me very happy, like deep inside. That touched me. So I'm glad. Other good thing, man, is the normalization, just bringing this stuff into the zeitgeist, and people like Gordo here deserve some credit for that. You know, all the work on the documentaries, the podcasts, like this stuff is out there, which is great. But I think on the flip side of that, with the government legalizing things, with Veterans Affairs getting involved, I think that's a slippery slope too, of trusting the government to handle this well. So like the same people who run the DMV, like you want them in charge of psychedelics now, the same people who've been screwing up everything with Veterans Affairs and with VAC, we're going to trust them to administer this in the right way. I think that's problematic. Perhaps the other thing here, I'll admit I'm a little biased, right? My entire business is integration coaching. But I do think that a lot of these centers popping up, even the places that do an amazing job at what they do, I don't think that they offer enough prep and integration support. I just don't think that you can do both things well in terms of running the actual retreat center and covering all the bases there. I say that as someone who ran the retreats and someone who now just does the integration coaching. So I don't ever mean to take something away from what these places are doing with their integration programs. It's excellent that they have it, but I don't think people are aware of how much more support they need until they're on the other side of it and they're not getting it. And that's honestly a struggle I'm running into, is helping people understand that before they're 6 months out from an ibogaine retreat and they're kind of going back into some of those old patterns, those old behaviors. I don't really know what the solution is yet. And again, that's my bias. This is my business, but that is what I see.
No, I dig it. I got a question on that about, and I'll come back to you in a second here. Josh, I want to get your thoughts first. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the stigma is slowly eroding around psychedelics, which is what you guys were mentioning, and I think that that is great. Seeing that more people are having access to it, that I mean, this is something you could talk about at a Thanksgiving table now. At 5 years ago, you better not. Like, man, you might be kicked out of the family for that, and now it's like, oh, did you guys hear that Aaron Rodgers did, this celebrity, that celebrity? I mean, it is becoming more mainstream, and I think that that's fantastic. But it does come at some kind of a little bit of a cost, because one, now we've got the potential of government regulation, like you were talking about, David, which has some some glaring problems in it. I think delegalizing it would be a step in the direction, not necessarily regulating, but just like, hey, these are things that like grow out of the ground. We don't need paper and contracts and all this litigious nature to go along with it. I mean, it is dangerous, and so I can understand that the fear and trepidation, and it should be treated with respect. But one of the things with that is we need to go back and I think look at how this was traditionally used, right? You didn't go to an institution, and not saying that you can't, and I don't want to like disparage anyone that is administering or practicing it in that way, especially because that's kind of how you have to in this day and age. But you went to your local medicine man. Like, he was a part of your tribe. It was a guy who knew you from birth. He was probably there and saw you being born. He knew your mother and father and grandparents or whatever. This would be the person that you would interact with. And so I think one of the things that we're lacking is maybe the personalization, which goes back to the integration part, where you go to a place, you meet the shaman or whoever, maybe you talk to them on a couple of Zoom calls prior to, you go, you spend the weekend, and that person probably isn't going to remember your name because there was 30 other people there and they've got 30 more people coming next week. And so I think one of the things we have to be cautious about is the corporatization of the thing, the tendency of like, well, man, we got to follow the business model. We got to scale it. And how do we do that? Well, we've got to, and I think that can lead to some very poor outcomes. And we're seeing that all over the place. We're seeing the effect of that mentality in so many other facets. Seeing that in something as profoundly spiritual and personal as psychedelics, I think would be really terrible. So I think that's something that we need to be mindful of and kind of keep an eye out for.
I love this. So far, like we've hit some amazing points already, and I'm probably not going to have enough time for this 2 hours to get through everything. Sean, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, things that we're doing well is what we're doing right now today in this conversation. So I remember kind of when you and I, Chance, talked about, ooh, should we or shouldn't we cover this topic? I mean, that was our response. That was back in the day when you, Chance, and I were clueless as to not just psychedelics per se, like at a scale. I mean, personally, we both have had some familiarity with it, but at scale, I didn't know much. And I didn't know what it meant to the veteran community or the broader community as a whole. And so you and I were both kind of working off of inferences and innuendo and myth and sort of disinformation. And neither of us knew the regulatory bodies and we didn't know the players. And so we were just kind of bumbling around in the dark to some degree. But we had great guests on. We covered a lot of good material. And for us, for you and I, Chance, that was to some degree not groundbreaking, but it was certainly like creating a trajectory that I never saw in my life like 20 years ago. I didn't think I'd ever be talking about those kind of things. But here we are. And now, as you said, I think this is our third one. It actually feels a little more familiar now. It feels far more comfortable, for sure. It helps that we've got this panel. But again, we're doing some things well, but right at the back of my brain, I've got this little itch that I want to scratch. And that itch is, it still feels wrong. It still feels wrong that we're talking about something that for so long was illegal or was frowned upon or had stigma. And I embrace the idea of psychedelics. I feel like if I knew more about it, I'd probably be an ambassador for it. I'd probably be trying to sit in Gordo's seat. But Gordo is owning that seat far better than anyone I know right now in Canada. And so I don't want his job. So then what's my job in all of this? That's where I'm left in this conversation is we might have started a conversation a couple of years ago, but now today I still don't know where to take the conversation. I don't know what we're trying to grow as a group, what we're trying to achieve for next year. Those are the kind of questions that I'm left with. So I have this little itch that says this still feels a bit wrong, even though I know it isn't. And I'm curious as to why that is. But then I'm more interested in where we are a year from now.
Josh, what do you got?
Yeah, so I think to answer that question, maybe you need to look and explore, well, what does the medicine actually do? What do these psychedelics actually do for people? And at its most, I guess, simplest term, it is healing, right? Like, why do people need this? Why is this important? Why are we talking about it? Um, because we live in a very unwell culture and society, and people need to experience certain things, I think, to work through the, you can call it trauma, you can call it damage, you can call it propaganda that we receive growing up about certain belief systems that have been like institutionalized into us. And so being able to understand and appreciate, how healing it has been for you, presumably, um, and then helping other people understand that, again, not as a quick fix, not as a silver bullet, but as a tool to help you explore and understand and recognize how much bigger things are than the world the very limited scope that we experience on a day to day. I mean, we've taken our massive perspective and we've narrowed it down to a little rectangle for most people, and that has become their world. And helping them to understand that there's so much beyond that, and these tools, these medicines, actually take that filter off, right? There's so much information that we are potentially bombarded with. Our brain has to like decide, okay, what's important, this isn't, this is, and then everything else gets filtered out. And what the medicine does, among other things, is removes that filter, and you get everything for a temporary amount, and then that opens your eyes to how much you're missing out on things. And I think that if people understood how much they were missing, their lives would be so much better, and a lot of that healing could actually occur.
To that point, I think that, and Dave, I see you got something on your brain. So why don't you go first? You hit it up. What do you got?
All right. Just again to kind of draw a distinction between like the large events, like 5 grams of mushrooms, ayahuasca retreat, etc., versus a microdose. So I think Josh is spot on that one of those big experiences, it can completely reshape your worldview, show you what you're capable of, show you what you've been missing. But people can't live in that place. So I think once you see that, now it's up to you to rebuild an identity based around the things that you actually want to be there, now that you've been shown what's possible. I stole this from Seb. He told me, we know what happens to people who get put in boxes is they tend to stay in boxes. I don't think our goal is to completely break out of that box. And like a large dose of psychedelics can dissolve the boundaries of that box you've been living in. But that's called psychosis if you're in that state 24/7. So then the question is, how do I build a new box that I want to inhabit instead of this one that was given to me by my service or my childhood trauma or societal obligations, etc. So again, that's the integration piece. Okay, my box got destroyed. Well, I need a box to live in. Which one do I want? I don't want to go back to that old one. So how do I actively build a new one day in and day out?
Can I just pose a thought? Is it possible to change box to maybe story, just because I
100%.
have a hard time with boxes. I don't know. And not that that's a bad model, but I think, by virtue of the word itself, it is kind of limiting.
For sure. Fair.
I think a box with like big ass garage doors on it, I'm more comfortable with. Where it's like, I know there's ways, I know that this box isn't the only box, but this is my box, but I want to know that I can leave whenever I want.
Man, can I draw out this analogy one step further?
Bring it
Chance,
on.
I'm sorry for
Let's go.
hogging up the airtime. I love extended analogies that you take so far they stop making sense. Do you guys know about hermit crabs and how they change their shell once they
They all
outgrow
line
it?
up and
They all line up. So until they have a bigger shell waiting for them to step into, they cannot shed their old shell. I think of it like that for our identities, your story, as you say, Josh. Like, we all have a story and we want to get rid of this old one, but we have to be constructing a new one that we're stepping into, or else we won't be able to shed that old one unless we know who we're becoming to some degree. So exchange box for shell, maybe that's better.
I kind of like box though, because I've been saying it all my life. Think outside of the box, and this is actually a relevant point to this box conversation, because without the idea in your head that you are an outside of the box thinker, naturally, or you by your very nature you like to think outside of the box. If you don't believe that, then what do you believe? You're stuck in your box. Because all my life I've felt like I like to think outside of the box. I've told myself for decades that I am standing outside of the box, looking in at their box. As I stand next to someone, I like to think that I am outside of the whole box. And if I'm not thinking that, I start creating actions, steps, whether it's a millisecond from now or it's a day and a half from now. I start looking for a trajectory that has me outside of the box. From the moment that I am standing in the box, I want to be outside of the box. And that's the way I've been forever, as long as I can remember. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that people who know me really well know me as a person who kind of creates trouble by thinking outside of the box maybe too much. And so, here's my point. You can have all the psychedelics in your pocket, and they may get you to a place that you want to go. But I believe that you've got to be part of that journey by considering what box you're in and what box you want to be outside of.
I really love this. Gordo, what do you got?
Yeah, I think what I've learned the most from psychedelics and then applied to like war and stuff is like, there is no box. The box is what you make. Like, the box means nothing. And I get the analogies and I agree with you. They're good ways to look at it, but to see the scope of mankind and what they can do doesn't have to be war, but it can just be everyday life and what police and first responders have to deal with, and the capacity of what people do, good and bad. I don't believe in a box anymore, and I wish more people looked at it that way. Like, no more box. What is the box itself? You are just like labeling something that means what? And something I think I wish I said from the very beginning, like, that we haven't hit on and I want people to know about, is the indigenous culture behind all this. Like, we're at a point with this medicine where we don't have to whitewash this like everything else. And that's the most crazy part about the system right now, is that we prop up all in the indigenous rights and historical stuff. And I think it should be. But here we are, white man pharmaceuticals shoving down people's throats, when the whole time our indigenous people have been using it for thousands of years and now it's illegal. But this is the thing that you guys all want. So we're at a very good point to, from the very beginning, treat this with the respect it deserves from the indigenous lens.
So what you're saying is you don't want to go on a vision quest in a completely white room on a hospital bed with a doctor in a white lab coat? Come on now, you're crazy. That's how I want to experience life. You're just crazy. I do really love where this is going, and I come at it from a kind of construction point of view, and I always looked at it as like putting an addition onto your house, because I think this is one of the perhaps the issues that most people don't realize, especially with the integration piece that we're all talking about, is that it's going to get worse before it gets better, right? So usually the first time you do these things, it's going to show you all the things that are wrong, right? All the things that are like aren't working, or are the things that are challenges for you in the moment. and that's where the integration piece comes into. So for me, when I think about this analogy of construction, I want to put an extension on my house. Well, that means I got to go outside. I got to take the walls down. I have to cut a giant hole in my wall. I have to then continue to construct this building from the outside in. And then finally, when it's done, I got to move all the stuff in. I got to organize. I got to paint. There's a whole lot of work that still needs to happen before that is now part of the home. And I think that's so when we're talking about being in boxes or not, I think it's just about expanding that box, creating little outcroppings that you can just kind of bring in and remove from the elements. Sean, what do you got?
Just want to be careful for all of the listeners out there and amongst ourselves, of course, as we create our own stories about psychedelics, as we are explaining what it means to us. There'll be people out there that are not relating to your version of psychedelics. They won't relate to how you build your house or how you put on an addition or how you paint walls, because their house that they're currently living in their head is a mess, is a ramshackle tin shack that is a disaster and leaks every time it rains. That's their house. So they're putting on an addition to a dilapidated mind, perhaps. And so as we kind of tell our stories and as we use these analogies, I just want to be careful for all of us that we're not like casually throwing out, well, this is how it works for me, and that's probably how it's going to work for you. And I definitely don't want any dogmatic language like, first time you take it, it goes terrible. Or first time you take it, it goes amazing. You know what it will do? It'll do whatever it does for you. And I can't tell you, and no one on this panel can tell you how that will go. What we can tell you is there's a way to move forward with it. And usually that is by being surrounded by professionals or people who've been in the game who can not just quite hold your hand and guide you through it, but can pre, during, and post process help enable you through the pipeline or through the trajectory of this moment. But again, to my point, no matter what I say or anyone says in this conversation, that's our experiences, not yours.
That's a great point, and I appreciate the clarification because you're right. We shouldn't be making these ham-handed statements. Gordo, what do you got?
Trying to explain what psychedelics are to someone is like trying to explain what free fall feels like. If you've never jumped out of a plane and floated freely down towards the earth, it is going to be very hard for someone to understand your explanation of psychedelics. So you have to be very careful. I echo Sean's point.
That's a great analogy. And I have not done free fall, but I have jumped out of a plane. So I have a small piece of that one. Quick comment here. Dan C says the box is conformity. And yeah, you're right. It is. And I do want to remind anybody watching, if you guys got questions for the panel, hit us up, put it in the comments. We will talk it out. The one question I have, another question for you guys is, you've all been doing this for a while. You guys have seen it from quite a while. Gordo's taking pictures for the social media. I love it. What are some of the things that perhaps you've some misconceptions perhaps you had at the beginning versus now? Like what are some of the things that have really struck you as being profound through the experience, through all of your experiences, through watching people do it, through helping people, through doing it yourself? What do you guys got? I'm going to hit Sean first on this one.
I won't make it into a really long story. I'll try to keep this less than 2 minutes. But my introduction to psychedelics at, I'll call it the heroic level, or like at such an impactful level, you might hear a term called hero dose or heroic dose. Look into it on the Google so you understand. But the first massively impactful psychedelic experience was down in Peru. And that wasn't a planned thing. I was just out on a 6-hour mountain bike ride with a national mountain bike rider, and we ended up at a place that his friend owned. And I'm going to really compress a long story. It's not something that I had intended to do, nor did I know what I was doing at the time. I was just handed a glass of really slimy green stuff, and I chugged it back, and then off I went on San Pedro and ayahuasca trip. And at about 0200 hours, I was up in a tree in Nowheresville, Peru, talking to the universe by myself and no one else around me. And, like that wasn't a guided, that wasn't a setup, an intentional thing. And so my tale is almost like a cautionary tale of how not to do it. And whether I got lucky or not, it was a positive thing for me. And it was so impactful that right now, in my mind's eye, I can see the universe that I was talking to. I can see the objects that were floating around the center of the universe, that you could call them angels or whatever you want to call them. But I had an experience that was life altering, that was unplanned. And I got lucky because I was all up in that tree by myself. So, psychedelics can come from the 360 all around you like that, or well planned. It doesn't much matter how they come into your life. I guess what is important is once they are in your life, whether it was planned or not, is understanding what they're about to do or what they're currently doing to you in that moment. And I guess I would say that maybe through the rest of this conversation, at some point, we'll talk about how there's no need to panic. There's no need to freak out. You're not going to die in the moment. You're actually maybe shedding an old life to step into a new life. But these are things that maybe we'll expand on throughout the combo.
I love it. Leave it to Sean to get ambushed by the universe. Like, of course, if it's going to be anybody, it's going to be Sean. Dave, you got thoughts?
Well, Sean said that was unguided. Sounds like that tree was taking care of you, man. That went just how that tree wanted it to go. So you're in good hands. Your question, Chance, was kind of misconceptions or things we were surprised by, right?
Yeah.
I wrote down 3 things. Number 1, I think we understand a lot less than we think we do. I was always floored by this in PT school when we're learning about pharmacology, and they're like, this is the proposed mechanism of action of this drug, but we don't actually really know exactly what it does. People don't like to admit that. It was like my, 12th retreat, probably close to 100th time drinking ayahuasca before I was like, oh, I think I'm starting to understand how this works a little bit. So we really don't have a great grasp of what's going on. And we like to think that we do because we love to conceptualize things, which is kind of tied to point number 2, which is don't forget to feel stuff. We're here having this conversation. It's really great to conceptualize everything. It's really great to be philosophical and have this language. And I think that's another way that we as humans try to control the experience, is by explaining it and talking about it. To me, one of the biggest things plant medicine has done is the gift of feeling things that once existed as an abstract concept in my mind, like gratitude. Sure would be nice to feel that. I could write a list of 10 things I had, but I didn't feel grateful. Plant medicine planted feelings in my heart that never were there before. And I think all of my work still lies in that direction. Last piece that I was surprised by personally is how important community is, which for you veterans with that brotherhood shouldn't surprise you. Our program used to just be one-on-one with all our clients. We added a group chat, and I was like, sure, they can all get to know each other. Why not? That has proven to be the most impactful element of everything that we do for so many of these people, to the point that now community cohesion and the culture of our community, that drives decision-making more than anything else, is how can we build this community of people who understand each other and uplift each other. End rant right there. I've been smoking my pipe a little bit too much, man. That nicotine's hitting me.
I love it. Josh, what do you got?
For me, I think the biggest surprise has come on more on the facilitation side. And I don't think I was initially prepared for how real things can get and do get for people, and what it is that they're going through and they have gone through. And sometimes that surfaces in the medicine in really unexpected ways, in ways that, like, sometimes things come out that they hadn't even realized had happened to them. And when you are face to face, and I'm sure You guys here have seen this firsthand when people are dealing with some really, really difficult stuff that's been deeply repressed, and then that surfaces and comes out. Man, like it is one of the most profound human experiences, because we have really such a limited concept of what other people have had to endure. Um, it really floored me. Like it was so humbled by being in a position to experience that with someone, to share, and then attempt to help and guide them through some of that. And I think, we are just so unaware of how much of an illusion we are typically living in. I mean, it's funny because we look at we call the medicine hallucinogenic, right? You're having a hallucination, but in some ways you are, right? Like, I'm not saying that everything that you experience in that is real. Like you saw a dragon and that was a real dragon. It probably wasn't. That tree likely didn't open its mouth and start talking to you, even though you could probably hear what it was saying. But just as I don't know, false and made up is the story that we often tell ourselves about our experience in our everyday life. And so it's just incredible how much truth can come out in this. And I think that the thing that is terrifying for most people, even on a subconscious level, is they're not always ready to face that truth. I think the biggest fear that most people enter in this is like, man, what if there's something that comes out that I'm not ready for? And it's valid. And this is the reverence and respect, I think, that we need to come into this thing. I mean, we talk about a hero's journey that comes from, Joseph Campbell's story arc, the hero's journey. And you do have to enter into the cave, but that is where the treasure that you seek lies. And most of us are looking for that treasure, and that treasure is knowing our truest, honest self. But it isn't easy. And so that's where, again, the guidance and having someone there that can make you or help you to feel safe, because when everything around you that you've known to be true starts to dissolve, man, it can be a real struggle for people, especially if they're not expecting it. The fact that you handled that without going completely off the rails, not knowing what you were getting to, like, oh, reality for no reason just went bye-bye. I guess I don't know what you thought you were in that moment, or who you became. Like, I guess I'm a cat now and I'm just going to live in this tree. Like, I don't know how you manage that. I think that speaks to your mental fortitude and the preparation that your life, experience had led you to. Most people probably couldn't have handled that, but you have endured enough hardship. And I think that's part of the the preparation of, like, yeah, maybe psychedelics isn't the thing that you jump straight into. Like, when's the last time you sat and rode a bike for, over an hour without headphones in? If you can't do that, man, psychedelics, maybe you're not quite ready. If you can't be alone with your thoughts without, like, oh, dude, I need to check my phone, or I got to have my music, or I need this, I need that. Maybe you need to do some work. Maybe you need to go do some ultra endurance type things and sit and meditate for a while. Like, there's some stuff leading up to it. But when you get there, man, the reality that you encounter is really cool.
I got to say, in terms of facilitation, I agree with you 100%. It is one of the most rewarding, but also educational things I think I've ever done when you start working with other people. And I worked with horses and people. And as soon as you enter into the equine realm and everything is based on energy and being able to control your own emotional state at the same time and still move a 1,600-pound animal, when people have a hard time with that, it becomes extremely emotional very quickly, and most people don't think that happens. So I can see where that is a facilitation wise, it's fantastic. A couple comments.
I gotta clear up that little story that I told. That was over 25 years ago, and so the psychedelic scene really wasn't a scene back then per se. I mean, it was, the 60s kind of came on the scene, and that was sort of the hippie trail, as it were. But like, where I was in Peru was quite by accident, and it was a long time ago, and things weren't well established. And so about 25 years ago, the tourism psychedelics scene was just starting to come on, and it was being done wrong, of course. And now the scene to some degree is still being done wrong, but all of those wrong ways have got a counterbalance of people trying to do it right. And so the reason I'm mentioning all of this is because Josh, you'd mentioned that, stepping into the cave, looking for that treasure. We're all looking for the treasure. Well, like 25 years ago, I was looking for the treasure, man. I'd come out of a really arduous career and then a couple of other things that I had on the go. And so I was trying to figure a lot of things out. I was bouncing around the world. Actually, why I was in Peru, it was a paid gig. I was working international security. I just happened to be in Peru. And so all of that long time ago was, you could call it by accident. I don't think it is. But when it happened, it changed my life. And so I've had 25 years of life-changing moment. And so if that hadn't have happened, my life would I would see the world differently today than I do now. And so one of the fascinating aspects of psychedelics, I believe, is it presents a view of the world that you couldn't have had without the psychedelics. And if you get in front of that, if you do that sooner rather than later, you've got all of those years to consider what you saw. And so if you do psychedelics when let's say you're a veteran and you're 40 and you've been struggling for a while and now it's psychedelics, well, you've got another, let's see, the average age for a man in Canada to pass away is about 78. So you've got 38 years of thinking about the world in a whole different way, rather than waiting until you're 60 to try psychedelics. So I would suggest for anyone who is interested in psychedelics, and I'm not talking casually, for the purpose of improving their life, get on it sooner rather than later.
That's a great point. I agree with you as well. I got a couple comments here. Littlefoot jumped in here. He said, I've done psychedelics on my own and I still don't know what it is or how to put it into words. Then continues on, that is my hesitancy with psychedelics. I've only done it 2 or 3 times. Each time I have a period where I'm in the fetal position and an overwhelming sense of dread and fight to get out of it. Once I'm out, I can stare at the stars for the rest of the trip and see them connected to each other by beam of light. This is great. This is what I love about having this conversation with the live audience, is that we're going to get lots of stories here. Dan C says, I've been told that psychedelic therapy could be beneficial for me, but I'm terrified at the idea of reliving the past incidents that brought me to this point. And yeah, we're going to get into this shortly. Don't you worry. I want to hit Gordo though and get his thoughts before we move forward. What do you got?
Yeah. The thing that surprised me, obviously the healing part, the power of it is amazing. It can be very amazing. But the thing that surprised me the most is how dangerous it can be to someone's mental health. If you don't have integration or a proper home life, doesn't matter if it's the goldfish. You can't take someone and go get them life altering treatment and then put them back in the same environment. It's not going to work. So I've been humbled quite a few times by having that idea of, oh my God, this is going to fix the guy and he's going to be not suicidal. And then within 2 weeks, he's suicidal again. But now he's suicidal because he thinks it's okay to kill himself because of what he saw on his trip. And it's like, that's not how this is supposed to go. So the danger, I don't mean to be the wet towel here, but the danger of this stuff is very, 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 very high if you do not have proper integration.
I would not say you're being a wet blanket. This is the point of the conversation, is to show all aspects of it. And that I want to have more people with more information, like I said, so they can make better decisions. Dave, I know you got something. What do you got?
No, I was going to say it probably reflects poorly on us that it took us an hour for Gordo to raise that point. So thank you, Gordo, because that's 100% true. And this is another reason, the more I've worked with medicine, the less I actually recommend it, and the less I recommend it as the first step. Because exactly as Gordo's saying, that person will do that. They're still in the same mental place, and now they've lost their sense of ego, their sense of self, and bad things can happen. So it's almost never the correct first step for somebody to jump into something like that.
Okay. Gordo,
and hey,
what do you got?
when it comes, so all this stuff is scary talk, right? Well, there's a lot of stuff that's floating under the surface, especially if you have, specifically if you have trauma. So it's not the fact of being scared of it. It's just understanding that the stuff that you've buried, consciously or subconsciously, you made a choice to bury that stuff. And that you might think is long gone, but it's not. That is right below the surface. And I can pretty much guarantee you some way it will come out, good or bad. It's going to come out. But a lot of the times it comes out, and that's what surprises guys, is that you can tell them as much as you can that, hey, stuff's going to come. But until they do the medicine, and then all of a sudden you see them on the other side and they're like, what was that? What just happened? And you're like, right, brother. Like you've been shoving stuff down for a long time and it just doesn't go away. And now psychedelics open the door. So what's on the other side of that door? We don't know.
That's a great point. So, well, what do you got, Josh?
I was just going to say, I think, it's important to understand that whatever however that shoving down happens, it's almost always a survival mechanism. Like no one is trying to screw themselves up mentally. Like in the history of the world, no one's like, what's going to cause me a lot of problems in about 20 years. Let me just not deal with this now. Like, no, you tell a story, you take an event, an experience, and you conceptualize it in a way that allows you to move forward and face the next day, whatever that is, good, bad, or not. And more often than not, we don't do a great job out of it, especially men, especially guys that have seen some pretty gnarly stuff. Like, we're not prepared and we don't have the infrastructure to adequately deal with that. So it does get shoved down. We do bury it. And whether that happened as a child or in the military or both, or, outside of that, whatever, it is there. And, we just have to recognize, like, okay, that was a story that I told that I needed. But at some point you get to a place in your life where you start to question, you're like, man, this isn't working anymore. Like I hit a wall, and I can continue to keep telling myself this story, and you realize, like, man, I'm going to keep getting the same results, and I would like to perhaps get different results. And so now I need to rewrite that story. And what the psychedelics do on a like biological level is they actually and I don't know, forgive me if this is redundant from one of the other episodes where you guys have gotten into it. But not to like take the magic out of it, because it is very mystical, and I'm going to get a little bit scientific here. And I think it is both. I think actually the more you understand the science, the more magical the whole thing becomes in my mind. But essentially what happens is your default mode network, the piece of your brain located in your prefrontal cortex that tells you that you are you. It's the piece of us that allows us to string yesterday and 10 years ago together to tell a cohesive story about who we are. That part is essential. If you didn't have that, right, we wouldn't actually be able to survive, because you wouldn't be able to plan ahead for the future. You wouldn't remember things that you did. You would go out and be like, man, I'm hungry, I should plant the garden. And then you wake up the next day, you're like, oh yeah, I should probably plant the garden. And you never actually follow the next step because you can't string the story together that you already did the thing. So we need that. But sometimes that story gets distorted by virtue of coping and trying to deal with the situation. And in the time when we're under the influence of these medicines, that part gets real quiet, almost shut completely off. And this is the ego death that people are describing. The ego is just the story you tell about yourself, not, oh, I think I'm so awesome, right? It's ego from a Jungian sense of like the identity that we have crafted. And sometimes that isn't a great story. When that gets quiet, other parts of the brain start connecting. They start talking to each other when they normally don't. And you get a lot of neuroplasticity. It becomes very creative. And that story has the ability to be changed. And so when that part gets quiet, that's when people usually start to freak out. I remember who commented, I forget your name, but you said you end up in the fetal position, right? Like, that's because to your brain, it is dying. When that default mode network, then that ego starts to get quiet, it can't tell the difference between, oh, I've been subdued by an exogenous substance, or like, oh no, we're dying, panic, this is bad. It's part of the reason why an NDE, a near-death experience, presents almost identical to the psychedelic experience on other DMT, Bufo, 5-MeO, and all of these other things. And so, yeah, if you don't know what's happening and you're not like ready to just let go and surrender to the process, the more you fight it, the more painful it is, and you end up fetal position on the floor until it finally passes. And you can fight it and you can try to resist it, or you can go along with it. And I think that very much colors the experience. But the real magic, the part that really, going back to what Dr. David has been talking about, that happens is when that part shuts down and then it eventually comes back online after you've had the experience, you have a window that you can rewrite that story. I've heard it explained that the story that you've told is a pathway, it's a groove in the neural networks that has been run over and over by you thinking this story about yourself. It's a track in the snow, as some people. When you take the medicine, that gets filled back in. And so now you have fresh powder, and you can carve whatever track through that snow you want to, if you choose to. And your brain actually goes back to a plasticity. There's a window very much similar to when you were a teenager or even as a young child, where you could like learn things really rapidly. Like you can learn language, right? And there's a phase in the teenage years where we can assimilate information really quickly. You get a window, and depending on the experience, it's longer or shorter, right? But let's call it like 2 weeks. There's about 2 weeks where your brain is like, the snow is powder, it is clean, and you are ready to receive new information. And that is the time to rewrite the story. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand the mechanics, and so they don't realize how important that follow-up is. They're just trying to make sense of what happened because it was so wild and so crazy. But it's the opportunity, like, hey, you can be a different person now. I don't know where I was going with that. I'll stop there because I lost it. But anyway, there's a fire hose of information to do with what you will.
There you go. I love it. So, Gordo, what do you got? I see you got.
I know we're not, and I'm especially not a doctor. Dave is a doctor, so that's cool. He can say that. I can't. Their data tells, stories sell, data tells, right? If you start looking at psychedelics actually scientifically and what is happening in your brain, it'll help you so much understand what's going on. The spiritual part, yeah, roger that. But like Josh said, if you have had a signal that's been sent hundreds of thousands, millions of times, if you're an alcoholic, if you're addicted to opioids, all depression, that signal's been sent so many times. That signal pathway is like a 10-lane superhighway down on the DMV outside of Washington, right? You take psychedelics, all of a sudden goes from the 10-lane superhighway maybe down to a single-lane road or 2-lane road with some stop signs and some turnoffs, right? So the signal isn't as strong, and it allows you to, when you have the urge where you're like, damn, I want that beer, it's not as strong as what it was before. And you can say, hey, no, I don't want the beer, which is going to take your neural pathway and go this way instead of this way. We're all built on patterns. We're built on survival. We're humans. We're built as the easiest way possible for something to get done. And that includes your brain. So if that signal is getting sent all the time, that groove, like Josh was saying, is so deep. All of a sudden, fresh powder, you have a choice, choose a different way. And you have to make those choices to do that. It's not the medicine's just saying the urge isn't as strong. It's up to you to then take the off ramp.
I take it. So let me ask you guys this, because I have a number of questions here, but I want to get into some of the meat of the conversation. I want to talk about first steps. We've been talking, if you're curious about this, you want to interested, you guys have all said that this shouldn't be the first choice, obviously, of some of the larger issues that a lot of guys are facing. But what would you say to the people that this is their first step? They've never entered into psychedelics before. They're struggling right now. Like, where do we go? What's the day one, week one? Here's the layout for you. Say you were talking to me or somebody else that's watching specifically. Where would you send them? Gordo, I'm gonna hit you.
Oh man, I think David would be a good resource. I'll give him a plug right now. Any reputable psychedelic integration coach is going to point you in a good direction. But just like we've said multiples of times, it's become a cottage industry, and who are you getting your data from? So be careful. Have an open mind. Everybody has their camp, and that's the thing that upsets me the most is that, oh, I did psilocybin and I did 1,500 burpees upside down backwards. Okay, and this guy over here does. Oh, I did ibogaine and I rode a boat for. I did 4,000 meters on a rowing machine, and I did ayahuasca. I did it this way, and they are in their camp. They're so ingrained that I see this a lot. Everyone thinks their way is the way to do it. It's just like there is no box. Be open-minded. Listen to everybody. Find trusted professionals, and then go from there.
Bam. I like it. Sean, what do you think?
So if someone approached me and asked me what's my next step or what's my first step in regards to psychedelics, I wouldn't point them anywhere. How about that as an answer? What I would do is say, grab a seat, let's talk. Like, I'm not going to point anyone in any direction until I get to know them a little bit better. If they're an amazingly deep friend of mine, like all my life, let's say, and they approach me, I'm still going to have the same answer. Grab a seat, let's have a chat. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? And I think that that is something that is a responsibility that not all of us take on to heart. We're keen to point towards a subject matter expert or keen to point towards the best camp for the best psychedelics. Whereas I feel our first step is actually to just hang out with that dude for a bit, whether that's a minute or a day, and just like tune into what they actually want. And so what they want might be something different than what they need. And so they might want psychedelics, but it might not be what they need right now. And that, as part of the process, is determined in the real time. And so they might show up for psychedelics and they might end up on a mountain bike. I was going to say the patterned answer or the glib answers or the token answers of, oh, you need psychedelics? Let me grab my Rolodex. Number 1, number 2, number 3. That isn't the answer for me. Like, I know that I would point people towards, well, everyone on this panel at some point in a conversation. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen within the first 30 seconds of the conversation. It might happen on day 4 of our conversation.
He is such an outside the box thinker.
He is such an. Sorry, I was muted. But Josh, what's your
Oh,
point?
okay. Yeah. I mean, I think kind of along the same lines with what Sean was saying is I'd ask him why. Why do you feel compelled? You know, what is the draw? Because I do think that quite all, you know, to switch back into the like spiritual woo-woo mode, I do think that it is something that kind of calls to us, whether we know it or not, whether we know what that call actually is. We may not be able to name it, but you know, there does seem to be something in like a timing that works out. Like the medicine didn't come to me until I was like actually ready for it. You know, you were seeking the treasure, but actually the treasure found you, Sean. And I think that there is something kind of mystical about the process that we need to give room for. And so I tell people, you know, to like, man, when the time is right, you'll know. I mean, ask questions, you know, we can have a conversation or maybe I'll send you to someone who might be more experienced in the specific area that you're asking about. Right. Like, man, I can't talk to you about ibogaine. I don't know anything about it, but I know someone who does. But just jumping to the solution rather than, you know, addressing what the actual question really is, I think is a mistake. I think, you know, the thing that I tell people all the time is I don't have any answers for anyone. What I feel like I'm really good about is helping them ask better questions. So that would be the game that I would play and the direction I would go. And then at some point I might suggest if they're not already practicing, I would probably bring up jujitsu. Not to beat a dead horse. But I think there is something about the ability that of submission and surrender in that practice that can be useful and that you can potentially draw from. Not to say that all jiu-jitsu guys are awesome and have a great time at psychedelics. There's plenty who don't. But coincidentally enough, those guys also have a hard time in jiu-jitsu because they're typically white belts that are like white knuckling everything on the mat. And you start, I would be curious to see what giving a higher level belt, a brown belt or a black belt, someone who's learned to kind of work in that realm, what the incidence of like good trip, bad trip, to use the term, looks like. But I'll defer the floor.
I volunteer as tribute. I'm happy to help. I just got my brown belt. I think that would be a really interesting experience to engage in. So I'm down if we can get that set up.
I got something next week, man. You want to come out to Virginia?
Sweet. I'll talk to my wife about that one. That would be a little tight. Dave, what do you got?
First of all, Chance, you got a good panel here, man. These are great answers. Completely agree with what's been said of like first seek to understand and to be understood. Like, what is the conversation we're even having here before pointing in any specific direction? If I can't speak on a sort of like tactical level to a listener who's probably annoyed by all these philosophical answers when they're like, well, what do I actually do then? I can tell you a little bit about where we start with people, which is the foundation, like the basic stuff. It's boring, dude. Like, before you ever touch the medicine in our program, we take a good hard look at your habits and routines, just basic stuff. When do you wake up? How much nicotine, alcohol, caffeine are you consuming? What's your screen time like? When do you go to bed? What do you do before bed? We start there because you'll hear psychedelics described as a non-specific amplifier. And I particularly think that's true of something like microdosing, where there's not a ceremonial container necessarily, and it's a smaller amount. So it amplifies what's there. So if your brain is not a great place to inhabit, if it's full of anxiety, and then you watch, there's someone called Moose on the Loose up there in Canada, some political thing. One of our clients was digesting like 2 hours of this every morning, and it was ruining his life. So if you're starting off with that and then washing it down with some coffee and like then you take your microdose, you're just going to have turbocharged anxiety. So for somebody who's wondering, what can I do now to prepare for psychedelics? Once I'm ready, once I find the right place, once I have all these things in order, start with that. Like, improve your starting point, because the psychedelics are only going to amplify that. So if you're already on a good trajectory, it can amplify that good trajectory. So on a tangible level, start journaling. If you don't know how, send me a message. I got things for it. Start meditating, start doing breath work, do something positive, because the medicine's not going to solve everything. It's not going to fix you. It's not coming to save you. It's just going to amplify all of the good efforts you're already putting in. So start there.
This is great. And to Josh's point, I'm down with beating a dead horse about jiu-jitsu because I love it. And
Arm-barring a dead horse.
Right, arm-barring a dead horse. There you go. That's a good way to put it. Sean was bugging me a little while ago about the fact that I bring it up pretty much every episode. So now when somebody else brings it up before me, I am very happy. But I think it's very similar to what you're talking about, Dave. It's very similar to jiu-jitsu. If you show up at class and you ate a ton of McDonald's beforehand and you haven't been working out and you haven't been training and you've not been drinking any water for 3 days, and like, you're going to have a really crummy experience. But if you go there and you're eating right and you're training well and you're integrating the information that you got from the last class, you're going to have a better class, I think. And I think it's a great point to start for anything across the board, is look at your platform. What are you standing on? And then move forward. Sean, what do you got?
That's all very true. Good analogy with the BJJ. Hopefully we don't have too many more analogies that are related to BJJ. I would say this, that the interesting part about your analogy is that every time you go to class, you're aware of how the class runs and who shows up at the class and what your expectations are and who the instructor's going to be, and your favorite little lucky rabbit's foot that you always wear, your little jujitsu socks. And it's all very rote, very routine, very familiar, except for the dude who's watching this right now, who's never touched psychedelics and doesn't know what a class looks like and doesn't have a favorite jujitsu socks. How about that dude who's scared to try it? And so what do you tell a guy who would benefit from psychedelics but is freaking out because of the stigma attached to psychedelics? Or he's heard that one story way back in the day where a guy freaked out and, ate 12 watermelons and he doesn't want to be that guy. What do we tell that person who is scared to even reach out to like Dave or any of us and have that conversation? Because he doesn't have a jiu-jitsu class that he's familiar with. He's just got fear right now.
Gordo, I saw you click off. What do you got?
Yeah, I think I'll address that first. I try to tell a lot of guys, especially the special forces guys, because they think they're big, strong, tough operators, right? BTO, big, tough operators. And you have to put your psychonaut helmet on, get your brain bucket on, strap in, have a little bit of forward-leaning confidence going into this. I told it to the ladies that came down on the last documentary, like right before we do it. Okay, guys, this is game time. Like flak vest on, chest rig on, weapons readied. We're good to go. Lean into it. People are freaked out. Like, I get it. It is really scary, but that's also where you have shown in your life that you're able to overcome these things. You have to have the same mental attitude going into it. And something that we haven't touched on that Josh lightly touched on is when the medicine calls. And what does that mean? When people finally say, hey, I'm ready for medicine, then that's truly it. I had 2 ladies on the cohort before when I first started up this last documentary, and we were getting closer to the preparation and they both dropped off. And it's not a bad thing. And for me, that is a huge sign where I'm just like, whoa. I'm not going to be like, oh, please come do it. Please come do it. No. Right away, stop, drop. If the person backs away from psychedelics and if you're having second thoughts, then you're not ready for it. When you get to a point where you're like, yes, I want this, and that can show up in many different ways, that is when the medicine is calling. And you'll hear that a lot. And it's so, so true. So do not force this. You will know, as abstract as that sounds, you will know when it's ready.
I dig it. Dave, you're nodding profusely. What do you got?
I'm nodding because he's saying everything that I believe. Those are great points. If I'll listen to myself talk and add anything, it's like, don't confuse the fear or resistance right on that threshold with the like, this isn't for me, or maybe it's not really calling me. As you said, Gordo, those people are fully committed. They want to be there, and there's still that fear right beforehand, which there should be. There should be some healthy respect. To that scared person, man, I would say the same thing I say to my 2.5-year-old, which is, it's okay to be scared. That's okay that you feel that way. Being scared is just an opportunity for us to be brave. So do you want to do this or no? And then let's figure out a path forward.
I dig it. Josh, what do you got?
It's interesting how much we conceptualize things, how much weight that carries in, our perception versus our reality, right? If you tell someone who's about to go perform and sing a song and they come up to you and they're like, man, I am so nervous and anxious. And you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, you must have stage fright. And they're like, oh no, stage fright, what do I do? Like, oh, well, here's what you have to do. And like, oh man, that's a problem to solve. Or you could tell that person, you're like, oh, you must be really excited to go do the thing you love in front of those people. That's awesome. And just that rephrasing, that reframe changes things quite a bit. And so I think being able to discern, real fear versus, excitement, I think is important. But again, a lot of that comes back to practicing getting to know ourselves and putting ourselves in situations where we can feel that out, maybe in a different arena, right? So the cool thing about psychedelics is, unlike the rush of jumping out of a plane, right? Like the consequences of screwing that up are really severe. And there's other things, like, again, a near-death experience that you have, life-changing for people. I don't think there's anyone on the planet that has had a clinical NDE, has come away from it, and like been like worse. Like you die and then you come back to life and you're like, oh man, that was the wrong move. Like no one ever says that. They're just like, the world is incredible after that. But you don't want to have to experience like a horrific car crash and be put in a coma to get to that. what psychedelics allow you to do is to bump into that threshold, to have a similar experience in a much safer way, if you're going about it in the right terms with a guided person and all the things that we talked about. And so to the person who is terrified, who is scared, I would say, like, one, really get to know your feelings, and like, is that fear? Is it excitement? And is it anxiety? Like what is it? Can you tell the difference? Do you know? If you don't know, we'll spend some time exploring that. And then from there, kind of following the steps of, okay, now that I know that, where do I want to go? And what does that look like? And what you'll find is that when you're ready for the medicine, again, the medicine will find you, the opportunities will come up. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to cut against the grain to get philosophical, a wu-wei principle of like being in a flow state. Man, the more you can adopt that in the medicine, I think the better the outcome is going to be. And honestly, the more you can adopt that in life, the better it's going to turn out as well.
Dig it. Sean, what do you got? Oh, Dave, what do you got?
If I can go back to a jiu-jitsu analogy just to make Sean mad for a second, because he raised that point, what do we say to the person who's scared of jiu-jitsu? We've all trained. It's normal for us. We can say these things from our perspective, but that guy who's never done it before. Well, if we're already convinced that this is a good thing, so somebody who's heard horror stories of psychedelics, the evidence is overwhelming that this seems to be a positive thing for some people. So how do I figure it out? If you're scared of jiu-jitsu, but you know you want to do it, hey, can we work on our flexibility in the meantime? It's going to set you up for success once you finally take the plunge. Can we work on our cardio, our strength, so our physical meat suit is ready when we're ready to take that plunge? It's the same thing here, man. Can I get into journaling? Can I get into breath work? Can I start doing some of these practices so that once that fear subsides, or once I do feel that call for the medicine, I'm kind of ready to go instead of getting ready from that point. So, sorry, Sean.
Do it to him.
You're all right. I'm going to do it to myself. I'm going to talk about jiu-jitsu. And so, one of the interesting things about not advising, but recommending jiu-jitsu to hard asses, to bad asses, is they're often scared to go face that first day on the mats because they have a certain sense of themselves. They have an identity that they don't want to face in reality. So they think they're going to kick that ass on the mat on day one. No, they never think that. If they've been told that, dude, your first day is going to be bonkers. When you get on the mat, whatever you think, it doesn't work that way. You're going to get your ass kicked. And that's all there is to it. Lots of people know that. Some people don't. The people who don't know that they're going to get their ass kicked on day one, irrespective of how many black belts they own, they'll show up because they're unaware. They're unaware that there's going to be a conflict with their sense of identity and the sense of reality. So those people show up easy peasy. The people who don't show up to jiu-jitsu are the people who think that they're a big deal. And then that first day, they realize they're not. It's a challenging thing, the ego in this moment. The ego drives a lot of our decisions, as we've already stated. But on this one, on psychedelics, I think one of the issues that causes immense problems or keeps a lot of people away from psychedelics is the fact that the word on the street is it's going to be a freak show. It's gonna break you so bad that you won't even know which way is up. And to some degree, I think that has to be said. But I would like to apply not a cautionary note, but a contrary opinion, and that is it doesn't have to be that way. It isn't obligated to be a freak show. In fact, just like jiu-jitsu, your first time on the mats, as you shake the instructor's hand and say, I don't know anything, thanks for guiding me through this first night, which is the appropriate way to enter into jiu-jitsu, you can do the same with psychedelics. Now, just like on the mats, no matter how you enter into you shake the hands, you're very cool to get along with. 10 minutes on the mats. Now you're upside down and you don't know how it all works and you're being armbarred. Well, at least you're in a safe space that you entered into feeling like everyone was cool around you. But with psychedelics, there's a certain sense out there that it isn't a safe space, and it is going to be arduous and adverse and perhaps villainous at times. And so it's that fear for some men who feel like they are the biggest badass in the world, that they don't want to face an even bigger badass, which is themselves on psychedelics. And so it's that reluctance to face reality that holds back a lot of men who think that they're a badass in reality. But it isn't like that. We're all just infants to some degree, and we're all trying to figure it out. And anyone on this panel who you may identify as someone who is living a good life or has figured a few things out or has taken themselves and put them back on the path, or however you see this panel, there are moments in all of our lives where we've been that toddler on the mat who was clueless. And we've been that person who was freaked out as we're about to step into that maybe psychedelic thing. So whatever fears you're holding, it isn't just you. It's all of us to some degree. But getting perspective on what it'll mean to you before you step onto your first mat, so pre, during, and post, that's what we've been talking about in this episode. And I think we should get back to that little bit of pre, during, and post sequence of events of psychedelics so that the listeners out there can maybe get some context as to stripping away some of the myths that all the dragons will be attacking you during your psychedelic session. So maybe, Chance, can we do a pre, during, and post sort of sequence of events?
100%. You're going right down the lane I was going to hit on next, which was the because we talked about, day one, what do we do? We're going to have that conversation, right? The next step is I want to talk to you guys. You've all been facilitators. You've all watched people go through this. So like Sean said, I'd love to hear what you guys have seen in terms of facilitating and allowing people to have these journeys and have these times. And yes, sometimes they're going to be kind of horrific, and sometimes they're going to be great depending on your set and setting, as you said earlier, Sean. It brought forward the memory of the fact that when I first started jiu-jitsu, I was one of those guys. I thought I've done a few things and I studied martial arts and I can do blah, blah, blah. And I walked in there and I got beat up by a 16-year-old girl for 45 minutes, like straight. And that was a realization for me, but it made me sit down and go, oh, wait, this actually works. Like the skill set obviously works. So it led me into that next step, but there's a number of dudes that I know that have done that first day and then walked away from it going like, no, this is garbage and I'll never and like immediately got to put that ego shield back up. So I do want to hear you guys from a facilitator point of view. What are you guys bringing forward? Dave, I'm going to hit you first.
I've got a wicked jiu-jitsu analogy for this, man. I'm sorry, Sean, I do.
I feel like I'm to blame for this, and I apologize. This is my fault.
No need to apologize.
It's not just you, man. Granted, I'm a blue belt, so take this analogy with a grain of salt, right? But I look at a macro dose, whether it's mushrooms, ibogaine, ayahuasca, whatever. It's like going to a week-long seminar with the best instructor possible. Insert whatever jiu-jitsu idol you have. They're going to show you your weak spots. They're going to show you all the things you've been doing wrong. You're going to learn wicked new techniques. To make the most out of that, you're going to prepare. You're going to analyze your game. You're going to look at what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my preferences? What do I want to learn? So you're going to show up there with a plan. And those are the intentions that you set in that preparation phase, where ideally you're taking stock of things and you're honest with yourself and you know what you're there to do. And ideally, you've tried to work on things yourself, so you're not just putting all of that onto the medicine or onto this instructor. And then once you're there, you might show up with a plan. You're like, hey, I want to learn inverted arm bars. And they're like, cool. Well, your guard actually sucks. So we're going to do guard retention drills first. You have a choice. You can say, yes, master, thank you for the correction, let's do that. Or you can say, no, I'm paying for this, teach me what I want to learn. And that's called letting go during your psychedelic experience. That's called the medicine is going to show you what you need to see. It's going to answer your intentions, but often not in the way that you thought it would. And if you hold on so tight to those, if you're attached to those expectations, you're not going to have a good time. And then the integration phase is where, cool, you learned all these things, you got shown all these sweet techniques. How are you going to apply them in training back at your home academy next week? Are you going to still put your foot in the wrong place because you've been putting your foot in the wrong place for 10 years? You got shown where to put your foot now by a master. You know what's the right thing to do. Are you going to act in the right way? Or are you going to follow those habits? We talked earlier of the default mode network, the opportunity that the psychedelics give you. So you by nature might be less likely to put your foot there again, so to speak. But what other factors in your environment are going to contribute to that? My analogy breaks down here a little bit, but like when you're back at home and you still have beer in the fridge, you don't want it, but it's there. Are you going to go drink it? So how are we going to update your environment? I got to work on that element of my analogy, I'm realizing now, but I think you guys get the gist.
I don't know, cleaning the mats, cleaning the beer fridge.
Sure,
I like it. I like it.
Thank you, Sean. The assist.
We can definitely talk about jujitsu more, but Gordo, I want to hear about your thoughts. What do you got?
Yeah, I think it's important to the verbiage here is really important because even I was getting this messed up for a while. So it's preparation, dosing, and integration, and that's like kind of the standard way that they speak about it clinically and non-clinically. You'll hear also I used to call it something different. But it's good just to know that it goes preparation, dosing, integration. With preparation, with my guys, girls, people, I start from the very beginning. History of psychedelics. I like to combine an educated person, like a research, numbers tell, story sell. So I like to bring in people that have done the medicine that aren't doctors at all. And then I also like to bring in doctors to be like, hey, this is what's happening in your brain. Give the person as much background as possible, good and bad, always. And I always lead with the bad because it's like, get it out of the way and make sure people are real and realistic with what they're going to get out from their trip. Oh, I lost my thought. That's fine.
It's all good.
Dose is next, I think.
Yeah. There was something else I was going to hit on with integration, but that's fine. So dosing, breathe. That was it. I would say breath work is the number one thing I tell people. Psychedelics with numbers tell, like literally you won't die or overdose from friggin' psilocybin. There's lots of studies and medicinal data to be like, oh, am I going to actually die from this thing? Not a lot says you are. So guess what? That means you can get through this. You're totally capable of doing that. And how do you do that? Breath work. Breath work will carry you through your trip. So straight into dosing, breath work. That's it. My second thing with it, it's hard to do when you are new to psychedelics. During the experience, lean in to the experience. If you were getting shown something, ask, what are you showing me? Or why am I getting seen this? Be interactive within the trip. Not as easy to do with your just starting off because you're just on a roller coaster and going, oh my God, and you're just taking it. Once you get comfortable, and even if you can do this in your first time, if something's shown to you, interact with it, ask questions. What are you trying to show me? All of these things, you'll be very surprised what will come out from that kind of behavior. During dosing, it's just like a roller coaster. Only rule, don't get off in the middle. Shout out to Trevor because I stole that from him. And then integration, we've said it enough on this and I don't need to repeat it. That is where psychedelics make its money. You want to make long-lasting effects, it's in the integration, and that means the work. Guys, you think you don't want to do it and you think it's just gonna pan out for you. It's not. You have to put the work in. You have this period of neuroplasticity where you can rewire your brain. You can rewire your brain on your own by reading a book and creating neuroplasticity by doing all the sorts of stuff like that. This is the steroid to your brain that you can use to make new pathways. But it all comes down to the work that you put in.
I take it. Josh, what do you got?
So I typically start off just asking what they know or think they know about psychedelics, because it's interesting. You know, people have preconceived notions, and so getting a feel for where they're at, and then from there, either validating or maybe shifting what it is they're thinking. And surprisingly, a lot of people don't know a lot other than like, well, it's supposed to be good for me, and I heard so and so did it and it changed their life. And so I try to get their expectation, in addition to their intention. And I think it's important not to conflate the two, because you don't, I think we've said this before, you don't always get what you want, but more than often you will get what you need. But if we expect, okay, I take this and I'm going to receive that, it's not that formulaic. This is where a lot of the mysticism kind of comes in, of just like, dude, I don't know. I can't tell you what you're going to see. Like I can kind of map out the phases of like, okay, man, at this point, you're probably going to see things. You'll get some visuals, at this dosage, the ground is going to look like it's going to start breathing. And then, about the next step is you start to see things more geometrically and the colors get more vibrant. And, at a certain point, you're going to get here. And when we talk about that, the breath work comes in. And I think something that I realized that I did, that I did for a while, was maybe not explain breath work as well as I could, where when you say breath work, it has so many different meanings to so many different people. What are we talking about? Are we talking about Wim Hof? Are we talking about holotropic breathing? Are we box breathing? Are we, what are we doing here? Right. And what I have found is, especially under the medicine, trying to get someone to follow an elaborate breathing protocol that is understood as breath work, good luck. I've been on both ends of it, where someone's trying to get me to do it, and I'm like, get out of my face, man. Like I can't follow. I don't even know what you're saying right now. Like, I know you're trying to help me, and I appreciate that. I want to breathe the way that I want to breathe, not the way that, stop telling me what to do. And then other people are like, man, you just got to breathe. And they're like, I am breathing. I'm like, I'm watching you hold your breath. You're actually not. And so when we talk about breath work, I think an understanding of just coming back to your breath, recognizing your breath, and feeling and experience your breath. Because in the experience, when things start to get difficult, and they may very well, you're going to feel, I tell people like, hey, you're probably going to feel uncomfortable at some point, and that's okay. That's part of the process. Like you said, lean into it. But when it starts to get difficult, do two things. One, ask for help. That's what I'm here for. I'll sit next to you. If you just need someone to like be in your close proximity, great. If you need someone to talk to you, if you need to share what you're experiencing, awesome. But when it gets hard, just pay attention to how you're breathing. Feel it, the inhale through your nose, feel your belly expand, all of the things, like focus on that, because what it does is it brings you out of your head and into the present moment. And that is the only way through it, is through it. And you have to be present to get through that. And so that's a big part of it. Going into the dosage part, I think that for the person who is terrified, maybe we don't heroic dose them, right? Maybe you, and I don't know, you can probably talk about this a little bit more, Dave. The difference between micro, macro, and heroic dosage, like there are levels to the medicine and the intensity that you may, and again, it's not an exact science. 5 grams for one person may present like 2 grams for someone else. 2 grams might send you to the moon, depending on you. Like there is no way of knowing, but generally, I if someone has no experience, I try to start with what I would consider a manageable dose, which is anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5 grams of psilocybin specifically, so that they can bump onto that edge, but not be thrown off the cliff necessarily. And so it gives them an opportunity to kind of practice, okay, this is what it feels like when things get really, really weird, without it just going completely off the rails. You feel like you have a little bit more agency. And I love talking, the idea of conversing with the medicine, like treating it as having its own identity, because it kind of does. If you've been in it, you're like, oh no, there's something here with me. It's not just, oh, I took a drug and now this thing is happening. It's like, I'm communicating with something that's outside of me, and I don't know what that is, but let me talk to it. And I think that also helps as well. And then afterwards, looking at, okay, kind of a hot wash of like, all right, what happened? What did you feel? What came up? And then what does that mean to you? You saw this, you felt this, you relived this, or you got, more, quite often guys get stuck in loops, right? The same rumination that we have in our everyday life, where you just think about the same problem over and over and over and over again. You'll find that under the medicine, you can get stuck in those loops as well. And you'll just relive this thing until the medicine works through, or you can breathe your way out of it. And so analyzing, okay, what was that? What was the medicine trying to show me? And then taking that and carrying it forward into the integration, which we've discussed. That's kind of my post protocol there.
I dig it. I got a question from the audience that I want to touch on here. Dan C jumped in and said, do psychedelics affect people with a neurodivergent diagnosis differently, or is it even recommended? And I think this is a great question. So I'm going to hit Gordo. Let's hit Gordo first.
Yeah, my dog was just barking. I'm super unqualified to ask that question, and I would be very careful with who you ask those types of questions to. No offense to the other guys. But I do want to talk about the breath thing. Okay, you will be so out of control in your trip that the only reality that you have is your breath. So when you think about breathing, that is something that you can control, because guess what? You will be bye-bye somewhere else. So when you breathe, that will take you back to reality, because that's what is holding on to reality. But yeah, neurodivergent, I don't know. I get a lot of questions like that a lot of the times, and it's the same answer every single time, that I'm not qualified to answer that question, and I would speak to a professional about it.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Josh, you got any thoughts before I hit Dave?
I mean, I was hoping you would defer to the expert, to the guy with the degree in it. But I would say, neurodivergent is such an interesting kind of catch-all term now. But and I think that there are specific contraindications, right? Generally speaking, from a clinical standpoint, someone with bipolar or schizophrenia, there are certain psychedelics very specifically that are just like, yeah, you definitely should not. My understanding is DMT and ayahuasca and those are generally not recommended. It is interesting. Some of the other psychedelics, their studies are coming out that are showing that actually can help with it. But now we're getting into like very, very clinical applications that is outside of my wheelhouse. As far as like, oh man, I have ADHD, can I take this? I would say resoundingly, absolutely. I would say that without any reservations. Am I autistic? You're on the autistic spectrum. That one gets a little bit more gray, where there's so many degrees of that, right? And we tend to throw around like, oh man, I got a touch of the tism so flippantly nowadays. It's really hard to not knowing your specific situation to give a definitive recommendation based off of that. So I'll leave that one to you, Dave.
Dig it, Dave. What do you got?
Guys, to be clear, I'm not that kind of doctor. I just paid a lot of money for a doctor title, so I use it when I can, but not this kind of doctor, not that kind of therapist. All that said, man, Josh, you're spot on. The concerns around things like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, borderline personality. There is new information that says some of those concerns may have actually been overblown early on. Clinically, you'll never see studies on that because it's always just contraindicated for safety purposes. I can tell you anecdotally, this is also why I love microdosing, man. It's so safe. You can't, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but someone with a tenuous grasp on reality, that grasp can be completely lost from a macrodose experience. Worst case scenario on a microdose, man, you stare at a tree for way too long. You're like, that's a nice tree, right? Like you're not going to go too far with something like that. So I like that as a starting point. Anecdotally, also, man, I say this with so much love. Almost all the veterans I've known and worked with, they could probably get diagnosed with a touch of the tism, as you put it. And then it's like, well, what symptoms are actual autism spectrum? What symptoms have a mild chronic TBI? What symptoms are mild CPTSD that affect my emotional regulation and connectivity? From my experience, a lot of people who do have autism or on the spectrum, they have a lot of difficulty accessing their feelings and communicating those feelings with other people and feeling like they're not being understood. And I've definitely seen microdosing make a difference in that. So depending on what diagnosis we're talking about, definitely not medical advice, but I wouldn't be scared. And I sound like a broken record, but this is why I like microdosing, man. It's like dipping your toe in this and assessing the response.
Great point. Josh, what do you think?
So one thing I would say is a big part of this, and this is probably for anyone who is pursuing this, especially if you have those concerns, to like, if you're considering it, you need to really trust the person that you're with, not just like, oh, this is a reputable whatever. Like they've got 5 stars on Yelp or whatever. Like you need to be very, very like comfortable with that person, and that person needs to be really comfortable with you. And I think this is kind of the communal aspect. You hear this thrown around a lot, holding space, right? We hold space for people, and that is what facilitators do. But there's a difference between holding space for someone that paid however much money to come up to the thing, and then holding space to someone that like you genuinely care about. Like, hey man, I'm gonna sit with you if you crap yourself. Like, dude, we're gonna clean you up. We're gonna get you squared away. Like, no harm, no foul. If you go off the rails for whatever reason and you say something that you thought you would never say, that's okay, man. You need to be with someone that has that level of commitment to help, in my opinion. And then Dave, we might be taken for granted that people know what you're talking about when you say microdose, because I think we use that term pretty much as a catch-all. And so I have some concepts of it, but I'd love to hear, and I think it might be helpful for the audience to like just get specifically kind of what that looks like and what you're referring to.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that opportunity and chance, if that's okay. When I'm talking about a microdose, man, I'm speaking on the order of like 100 to 200 milligrams. So like 0.1 grams of psilocybin. You spoke earlier of like a 2-gram dose. I don't even play in the middle anymore, man. If I'm doing it, it's like 100 milligram microdose or 5 grams lemon tech method. That's me, not advice. But yeah, for our purposes, when I say microdose, I mean, I used to call it subperceptual. That's not really true. There are effects there that you can perceive if you know what to look for. But you are still you. You can still pick up your kids from school. Allegedly, we've had active duty law enforcement guys microdosing, and they claim that it makes them better to deal with when they're interacting with civilians on the street. So you are still you on a microdose. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
And I think, my understanding of subperceptual, what people typically use is like, yeah, you're not going to see anything weird. I think most people's qualification for like perception tends to be vision, right? And so like, around, at a museum dose, as they call it, like you can walk, things start to look a little bit funny, but you're not like totally just removed from your body. But I think that subperceptual, like, okay, the perception is that you feel better, I think is what you're referring to. So like, if you know what to look for, like, man, my mood is elevated. But I think for people to understand that, like at that 0.1 gram, like, yeah, you're not going to see anything different than how you see the world. No. You just may feel better, and your thoughts and your mood might be able to be perceived differently if you are paying good attention.
And there it is, the key word, paying attention. So for me, a microdose is 0.2 grams. That's it, that's all. And a heroic dose for me is 5 grams. And then there's room to wiggle around in between the two, but whatever. That's how I simply categorize it for myself. Now, on 0.2 grams for the internet, what I feel, I don't get vision distortion. If I'm walking through a museum, I'm into the museum. But what I do is I'm more connected to everything, in particular people. And I already feel like I've got like good empathic abilities. Like I walk into a room, I feel the room instantly. I pretty quickly understand who's who in the zoo, and I understand kind of where they're at. But on a 0.2 gram, like on a microdose, I just have more feel. And it's not feel like scary feel, like I'm freaking out feel. It's just I am more connected to the universe, to my planet, to my fellow man, to the moment, to the painting in the museum. I am just more there. And what does that mean? Well, that is the question, right? What is the point of a microdose? Is it to put on your police uniform and go out and like, quote unquote, deal with the day? Or is it to take the microdose, put on your police uniform and go out, do your job and be more connected to it? Be more connected to the person who's in front of you. So is it trying to deal with life, or is it trying to connect to life? And to me, that's what psychedelics at its root is all about. It can provide us lots of things, but are we just looking for the treasure, or are we trying to share the treasure? You know what I'm saying?
I think it's a great way to put it. Gordo, you had a thought there a second ago?
Yeah, just the neurodivergent thing. Like, this is the reason why we need research to be conducted. And again, America's leading the way. Texas, $150 million last year for the ibogaine for opioid use disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. It's like they have specific programs with ibogaine for any neurocognitive disorder. So my father has Parkinson's, and he's a veteran with a TBI, and I'm begging him to go down and try their programming. Like, we need to do the research to figure out what's going on with these, to how we can like better help people with neurodivergent or anything else that's going on in their brain. It really is the Wild West. And I don't understand why we're not leaning harder into it.
Yeah, it blows my mind too. I'm looking at not just the science, but the anecdotal evidence from other nations' veterans who have done these things under trial experiments or with the right group of people, and the benefits that they're espousing it just seems silly to not look it up. Just look at it. It seems almost. What do you got, Sean?
Okay, so one thing that is important is we talked about the pre, during, and post sequence of events. The post sequence is actually what we're talking about right now, where someone goes through the moment, and like maybe they don't have a support system, or maybe they do. That's unimportant. The reality is that they're going to do some sniffing around post event. They're going to like hit the interwebs. They're going to start hitting Reddit. They're going to start reading about what's normal, what isn't, what should I have done, what shouldn't I have done, why didn't I see dragons? If I didn't see dragons, what does that mean about me? That's what we do. Post event, we're trying to figure it out. And we're going to figure it out. It's whether we figure it out right or wrong. And so if you're hitting the interwebs and you're doing all of your learning through that process, if Reddit is your post-event interpretation, good luck. And that's why you need facilitators, and not facilitators who are namaste holding the space for you because they're a hippie. They should have some experience. They should have some perhaps credentials, whether that's professional or not is unimportant, but they should have been in the game. They should have been aware. They should have been experienced before you showed up. Because without people to walk and talk you through the talk that they've already done themselves in a reasonable manner, then you're just back to Reddit. You're just learning about psychedelics through someone who held the space for you, where they learned about holding space in Reddit. And so at its root, when you're looking to engage in psychedelics, I do believe it's perhaps not about all of the science credentials that a person might have on their wall, but it's certainly about experience credentials.
That's a great point. Now, so we're almost at 2 hours here, and I just want to say, first off, thank you guys. This has been awesome. And if you guys got to run right away, we can shut her down. But if you guys are good to hang out for a little bit, I got a couple of questions I want to touch on before we go. Okay. So Dan C responded to you guys' questions. He says, I was diagnosed with as AUDHD and am just now starting to understand my entire life. I'm not sure what the AUD is. What do you got, Dave?
Yeah, so I believe that means autistic and ADHD.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So anecdotally, allegedly, I am on 27 milligrams of Concerta, which is an ADHD medication, and 100 milligrams of psilocybin today. I just pursued getting diagnosed actually with ADHD recently, like within the last couple of weeks. And as this guy's saying, my entire life actually does make a lot of sense. And I was shocked. Once I started this medication, I was shocked that I ever did anything in my previous 31 years of life on this planet. For me, I was banging my head against a wall, and I was pursuing it with the lens of shadow work, the lens of the psychedelics, of like, why am I avoiding doing all of my work? What is it that I haven't looked at yet? What more work do I need to do? It's really changed my belief on SSRIs as well, that like I got this prescription medication and it has radically changed my life. So I'm actually a lot less, I'm more hesitant to denounce SSRIs now. I think that this stuff does have its place for some people. So Dan, I don't know, man, I applaud you for getting that diagnosis. I'm glad things actually make sense to you now. Just don't let the doctors put you in boxes and put labels on you, because you can still have a freaking awesome life and do a lot of good things. But just wanted to share my personal experience there.
That's a great
And
point.
conversely, no matter what title you're given, it's not like, I was going to say a death sentence. We're all dying. Whatever title you're given, it doesn't mean that's who you are forever. It just means that's what someone told you today. And by tomorrow, that could all be changed, by the way. And so, you know, whatever tisms I've got or whatever acronyms I own, and I'll own 20 years from now, or I should have owned 20 years ago, whatever, man. I know so many people who've got so many acronyms attached to their name that, you know, whether they're aware of it or not, it's what are you doing with your life today to become a good person, to live your best life? If it's psychedelics or SSRIs, or, you know, it's riding a mountain bike, whatever it takes for you to wake up and live your best life. That's really what this conversation is about. We're not exploring psychedelics because we've got free time. All of us have got free time today. We're exploring it so that we can all live our best lives. Am I wrong?
Not at all.
This is all about living your best life. And
And-
if you're not living your best life, then address that. And if you've got a friend who you know isn't living their best life, that's what this is about. Have that conversation with them. Don't tell anyone, I listened to a podcast and you've got to start macro dosing psilocybin today, bro. But engage with a person who you can see who isn't living their best life or their full life, and start a conversation before diagnosing them or delivering the psilocybin to their front doorstep.
This is great. Josh, what do you got?
Well, I was just gonna say, I was like, living your best life, I think, is ultimately getting to a place of understanding that life is itself psychedelic, without anything extra in. Like the ideal state is to be in a place where it's like, man, I can just experience everything to its fullest degree. The good, the bad, whatever it is. I don't have to run. I don't have to hide. I don't have to walk in fear of, what if and what it is. I just accept what is coming and I move through it. And I think the psychedelics give you the opportunity to practice that. But the goal isn't to spend the rest of your life chasing this peak, right? Of like, oh man, I gotta blast off and I have to leave my body and do this thing. And there's nothing wrong with people who explore that, because, I think there's value in people going and mapping that world out, right? Like, yeah, man, we need guys to go and really get an intimate understanding of the medicine. But I don't think everyone has to do mushrooms 1,000 times in their life, right? And I don't think there's a limit to like, okay, you get 3 turns and then that's it. It's not a hard, fast rule, but the goal, I think, is that each time you interact with the medicine, it is healing for the sick, and it is teaching for the well. And every time you bring something back, you bring a piece where you kind of walk in that state in your everyday life, to the point where your whole life is just you're in the medicine. You're never not in the medicine, and you can still take the medicine, right? But there's never a time where you're out of it. It is you, and you are it, and that is part of the oneness that you experience. And I think that if there's any kind of I don't want to even call it a destination, but if there's a pie in the sky ideal, it would be understanding that you have all the medicine you need inside of you already. It is there. You are the medicine itself. Sometimes you just need a little help to have that revealed to you. And this is what the psychedelics and a good guide can allow and give to you.
I take it. This is awesome. Gordo, what are you gonna say?
I was just going to say that the more I do psychedelics, the less I need psychedelics, which is like weird to say. And before anything else, I think, because we've spoken a lot about like what Sean was saying in the integration, and I think this makes sense. So you study it, look it up on Reddit, you're trying to figure out, oh, I saw the dragon, I didn't see the dragon, why I didn't see the dragon. Maybe, just maybe, think about it, that if you are trying to relate your trauma to your trip and you're like, hey, what did that dragon mean? Or how come I didn't see the dragon? Because I wanted to figure out what happened to me when I was little and all this other stuff. What you don't realize is happening while you're looking and trying to figure out what the trip meant is that you are touching that trauma and that difficult situation over and over and over and over and over again. And that is getting you more comfortable and desensitizing you to that trauma, right? And getting you more comfortable with it. So as much as we think we need an answer, just the exercise of trying to figure out what it is healing in itself.
We see this in equine therapy all the time. Just when you first start it and you first start working around horses, it it can be very, like I was saying, emotionally driven at first. But like you said, the more times you go do it, the more effective you can be in its work, which then means that you can integrate it more. And then the funny thing is you have more people coming back to just hang out with the horses than they are to do the like work anymore, right? Because it becomes a what's the word for it, almost a comfort to just be in that realm. I think this is just fantastic, and I want to get these comments out here before we shut her down for the day. Sandy Baker jumped in here and said, love this conversation today, gentlemen. Very powerful, very informative. What a panel. Littlefoot says Sean has the Terminatorism, which definitely is a thing. Dancy says it's a life-altering medication. I'm on Concerta as well. Thank you, gentlemen. Bundy's jumped in here and said, I have tried 5-MeO over 15 times during my life. During my trips, life was boiled down to the basics: breathing, health, family, protection, all the BS stripped away in an instant. I think this is a fantastic point. And then a question, Littlefoot says, if Sean doesn't mind, how often do you microdose?
That's a good question. As often as I need, or as not often as I need, whatever. You know, like I'm not going to give a number, and I can't actually give a legal answer here in Canada at the moment. All I can say is when I need it. And I suppose maybe the follow-on to that answer is, how do I know when I need it? Chew on that.
Bam. I love this. So we are just a little bit over 2 hours right now, so I want to get some final thoughts. But before I do, I want to say thank you again, because Gordo, Dave, Josh, Sean, this has been super informative, and I can't thank you guys enough. This has just been fantastic. We're going to do another one just down the road a little bit to keep hammering on this subject, because I think it needs more conversations like this out here. And Littlefoot says, good answer.
That's right, the only answer. Hey, before we wrap up, I know, Chance, usually you're launching straight into your closing sentence, etc. I don't know if we're going to do final,
we're going to do final
kind of comments.
Here.
Okay. I just wanted to state that this topic as a whole is not an easy topic to cover. And we've all done our best, as we always do over here on the show, to literally do our best. But there's going to be gaps in the material we didn't cover today. Or there's going to be questions in your mind right now that we haven't answered. And that's a good thing. What it should mean to you is you have follow-on research to do. You have follow-on answers that you're going to have to seek to the questions that you have now. I would recommend that as a follow-on to the show, you follow up with the troops that are on the panel. There's someone here on this panel for you. someone you're resonating with, someone that you thought, that guy gets me, or I think I get him, or I think we could get along, whatever it is. This is a great opportunity. This is not Reddit. This is a great opportunity for you to feel the vibe of a person and then reach out to them with some follow-on questions. I just want to get that out of the way, that a podcast doesn't end the moment that the screen goes blank. Your head is the podcast. You should be thinking about this and following up with it after the fact.
Yeah. I mean, that's the title of this episode, Psychedelics and Reality. It's really not an and. Psychedelics reality, I think. But I want to get your guys' final thoughts. Anything that is still bubbling in your brain or you want to get out? And I want to ask this question as well. Going back to the intention that you guys had when you first started, do you think that you've succeeded in that intention in terms of what you wanted to bring forward in this conversation? And then any other final thoughts you still got boiling in your brain? Gordo, I'm going to hit you first. What do you think?
I think we did a great job. This is honestly one of the best podcasts I've ever been on. And I appreciate you guys for letting me hold the space with you. And if I ever get to work with you guys or trip with you guys, I'll be more than happy. I can tell that this has been just honestly a fantastic conversation that I'm going to be able to point everyone that has the questions about psychedelics too. So great job, Sean and Chance, for putting this together. We need support, guys. And I'm not asking to take away anything from the menu. SSRIs work. I'm not asking to take it off the menu. I'm asking to expand the menu and give people options. And I think we're here as a nation, as human beings, we're ready for the next step. And I truly believe within 5 years, this is going to be normal practice for a psychotherapist to be able to prescribe this stuff. Depending on which one, I don't know, but like we're right there. So we need as much societal pressure as possible to put onto our government and the health establishment to get research done that will make them feel comfortable with it. But it all starts with research. So please talk about it, be a champion of it. Don't be afraid of it. And just know that it's not for everybody, but it could be for someone.
I love that. It almost, there was a statement a long time ago, and it was something along the lines of like, it's for anybody could do it, but it's not for everybody. Does that make sense? Josh, you got any final thoughts? Anything?
Yeah, I think that was pretty comprehensive, and I'm honored to be amongst such distinguished gentlemen that it's cool to see that there's people out that care this much, that are exploring, that are asking the questions, and that are like digging into this thing and genuinely, truly wanting to help others. And I think that stems from how much this practice has helped each one of us, right? I don't think any of us would be here if it wasn't profoundly beneficial. And so much so that, guys are willing to stick their neck out and potentially take some risk by having conversations about a thing that is still taboo in a lot of circles. And I think that speaks volumes to it. So I'm really grateful to share space with you guys and to chat, and looking forward to having more conversations and hopefully getting to know you all better. And that I hope that the audience, is able to take away some new perspective, and that, I don't know that we gave any answers, but hopefully we are able to help them ask better questions.
I dig it. Dave, what are you thinking?
Man, a lot of thoughts. I like the gratitude of being on here. You guys rock. Josh, I'm having my first son, so that's why I was watching videos of you chopping down a tree, because I'm like, bro, I gotta be more manly. I could be a girl dad all day, but I feel like being a boy dad is going to ask a lot more of me, which is also why I'm working on myself so much right now. That's the cool thing about your wife being pregnant, is you got 9 months to figure some stuff out. It's not like the baby gets there the next day. If there's one thing I do just want to come back to, just because I'm worried that we might give someone the wrong impression, because we've now contributed to this body of knowledge online that someone can research and look up and listen to this whole conversation and kind of confuse the map for the territory, right? I don't want people to be scared of what we just talked about or contribute to building up these grandiose expectations in their mind. A lot of veterans and first responders, they're used to fighting. They think that everything is a fight, everything is a struggle. They have to fight their demons. I hate when people say that. you're trying to move beyond fighting when we are on this healing path. I won't share his name, but a dude came to Peru with us and he did night 1 of ayahuasca. And then I'm talking to him in the morning and he goes, okay, I met Mother Aya. I'm ready to wrestle with her now. I'm like, bro, who said that you're going to wrestle with her? Like, can you guys have a nice, pleasant lunch date? Like, how about that, man? So I don't want this to contribute to just the building up in people's minds that it has to be hard or it's going to be terrible. You're going to relive all these things. It can be fun, man. It can be awesome. It's love. Let it be fun. Let it not be a struggle. Move past that view. So I'm off my soapbox. I just wanted to make sure that we had that perspective so that things didn't come out wrong. I got more thoughts, but I'll quit hogging up all the time, man.
It's all good. I really like what you said there. And, you know, I don't think it can be stressed enough that it is not all doom and gloom. It's not all absolutely amazing. It's not tree melting, universe exploding. Not to say that it can't be, but it is a very personal experience in any regard. I just love that. Sean, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I've got lots, but I'm going to keep it simple for me and maybe for everyone else by just not building off of what Dave said, but staying in that same lane. And interestingly enough, if you look at his t-shirt, Chance, if you can flash to David's t-shirt, Warrior in a Garden, Seb Lavoie and I have been working on a book for 4 years now. It's so close to being written. And the title of the book is called A Warrior in a Garden. And the reason we titled the book as such, shameless plug, not to be confused with my book that is now in publishing, which is called A High Fidelity Mind, ... etc. The book, A Warrior in a Garden, was titled based on the duality of life. You can be a warrior, but you can also exist in a garden. The warrior can exemplify your external, but the garden can exemplify your internal. And I think that the two have to work together simultaneously, forever, constantly. So the idea that psychedelics is going to be good or bad, well, that's the duality of life. It'll be what it'll be, and you'll coexist with it in the moment. And if you are a warrior, you will find a way to live in that garden. You will find a way to be cool with who you're going to become, rather than trying to be cool with who you are right now.
Sean's always got the greatest philosophical points to end the shows on. I love it. You know what I think I might do is just give you the final send-off every time, and you can just dive into it from there. Some comments here. Dancy says, this was amazing. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great weekend and play safe. B-Tops jumps in here, says, yes, I appreciated all the dynamic discussion, and there was lots that I hadn't thought about before. Thank you for doing this topic the way you did. And continues on, maybe use this topic for the next one. I'd like to know how we can be advocates for psychedelics, or psychedelic research and safe administration here in Canada. That's a great question. Maybe we will. Maybe we will. Littlefoot said, definitely look at All the Way clothing. Awesome quality. And Bunsey says, wearing my All the Way shirt right now. Great. I love it. Everyone's just like pumping up their shirts and putting it to the camera. And this is great. And I mean, that shirt that Dave's got on is from Chad McLean down doing, I just forgot.
Mental Joe apparel.
Mental Joe. Thank you very much. So there are lots of people out there. If you guys are looking for information, by all means, you can hit us up. And
so there are lots of people, and you are on a roll, Chance. And can you please give everyone sort of a quick spotlight, Gordo, Josh, and Dave, on what they could offer after this podcast is completed?
Bam, let's hit it up right off the top. Gordo, what can you offer for the world out there?
Wow. Okay. So because we had a guy pass away by his own hands a couple weeks ago, time has come to stand up a program here in Canada. So we're going to do something called program Full Circle, where a veteran comes in crisis. They immediately get course loaded into a community setting where it's going to be community calls once a week that you get plugged into. But not only that, you will be plugged into psychotherapy network, and based on your scores, we will be taking confidential information about your depression and PTSD and stuff to tell us where you are at in the spectrum of suicidality. I guess suicide is the best metric. That is not a scientific term I'm going with, but I don't care. Hey man, how close are you to thinking about killing yourself? And then that is going to put them in ranking for retreat globally. So becoming I'm going to talk with you guys after this. And same with you, Josh. But I have connections now in Mexico, Peru, Colombia, America. We have access to this. I don't have money for you to go to these things, but we will find a way to make this happen. And we get a good rate. We can make Canadian cohorts, but right away you'll be slotted into community calls. You'll have peer support coming around you, and you'll have psychotherapists that are all trained in psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. So be on the lookout for that. I'm hoping to launch it at the end of next month. And we gotta do something, guys. So it clearly has to come from the floor, and it's not coming from our overlords. So this is my solution to it. There's a bunch of resources that are going to be put behind it, and it's got my heart. So just be on the lookout. Hold on, man. Do not do it, guys. Do not do it. It is the most final thing you could ever do. If you think you will win a fight with it, it is not worth it, dude. Just pump the brakes, slow down. We'll get you squared away.
Very good. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to, that's such an important thing that I just want to follow up and just say that, like, people do care. You've got a panel of people who care. Maybe I've never met you, but I care. Right. And it doesn't matter where you're at, who you are, or whatever. Like, you were put here for a reason. Like, by virtue of your existence, like, you are supposed to be here. I don't know why. I can't tell you why, but like, there's a point where you won't be here, and that's fine. But right now, as long as you are, it means you're supposed to be. And so don't take that for granted. Don't take that in your own hands. Find somebody, because people care. Like, there is still a mission for you out there, even if it's not apparent. As far as what I can do to help or offer people, I wish I had a more succinct answer. I guess if you are on a quest and you are in need of a wizard in your party, then if you're King Arthur and you need Merlin, if you're Aragorn and you need Gandalf, then that seems to be the place that I find myself. The ability to just guide, to walk with you. Like, again, I can't solve anything for you. I can't give you the answers, but I can walk with you, and I can show a different perspective, which is often really all that we need. We just need to see things through a different lens. And what I can help people with who are ready to take a look is I can hold up a mirror and allow you to see yourself for who and what you truly are. Which is probably not the story that you're telling yourself in your head, especially if you're struggling with things. And so the way that I do that is just by interaction. I work with guys one-on-one. I also have groups of guys that I work with. And then we have people coming out, and we spend time together doing man stuff for guys that are like, man, I need to figure out some things before this kid. Awesome. Cool, man. We're going to cut down trees. We're going to
freeze because of bad internet. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Entering more manly stuff. We're going to wrestle sharks.
We're going
to crocodiles. We're going to chop trees down on crocodiles.
That is amazing. Dancy says amazing. From a survivor's perspective, absolutely effing amazing initiative. Yeah, 100%. The thing that kicked in here, there he is. He's back.
Sorry.
All good. You were just in the midst of telling us how all the manly things, and then you froze up, and I was like,
perfect. And then I froze up. It was too manly for the interweb, I guess. Sorry, I broke the internet. And so yeah, so I do host people, and we get together, and they're very small groups. I'll have 12 guys coming out and spending a weekend this following weekend, as a matter of fact, and I don't put this on the flyer because of obvious reasons, but quite often we do integrate medicine into the experience at some capacity. Again, it's the way the world is. You can't just announce that, but if this is something that you're interested in exploring, feel free to reach out and ask whatever questions, and I'll do my best to steer you in the direction you need to go in.
I love this. It you know what it reminded me of? You know the old Tombstone line of "I'll be your Huckleberry." I'm just picturing you as like, "I'll be your wizard." All right, let's do this. David, what can you offer up?
Yeah, man. Tyler, Josh. Sorry, Josh Tyler. My brain. I like you, dude. You seem like a very sweet guy. You're just every answer. It's coming from like caring about people. And I briefly considered becoming an orthopedic surgeon, and I chose the physical therapy route because I cared about people and I wanted a relationship with them over time. And that's also why we work with folks for 6 months instead of just, hey, come to a weekend retreat. So I like that. Starting with somebody who actually cares. I feel like that's the secret sauce sometimes. Like that's all somebody really needs is to know that another person actually cares about them. And so, Gordo, thank you for this initiative that you talked about, man. So when people are in crisis, I'm not the guy for them. So I love that I now have a better place to turn people to. So thank you. As far as what I do, I mean, we talked about the microdosing. So if you've got your eyes set on a bigger experience, but you're maybe on SSRIs right now, so that's kind of a barrier to getting access to that stuff, we can talk about it. If you know that you need a little bit of extra help and support on the integration side, that's what we do. So if everything I shared about microdosing interested you, check us out on Instagram. If you follow me, I will send you a message. That's me or someone on my team. That's a real person. I hate AI chatbots. So if you follow us, I will talk to you. So talk to me back if you want more info on all that.
I dig it. This is awesome. Sean, you got anything that we can do as the collective? What are we doing?
We are. I mean, we do every single show. And what we are doing or what we do is we care. We care enough to run a podcast, to have conversations like this. And I would just like to remind everyone that, like, just over 4 years ago, the only reason that I appeared back on the grid is because some friends from back in the day, my first career in the military, asked me to get rid of my businesses and come and do this. So I threw away gave away my businesses. I volunteered to do what I'm doing right now. And I've been trying to crack this nut ever since. And granted, I haven't done a great job along the way, but this is important for everyone to hear. I've been doing my best. As I look at every single dude on this panel, we're all doing our best. And we're doing our best not against a nebulous problem. We're directing our energy at a mission, at a purposeful mission. And I feel like it's given me not a third life. It's given me enough purpose that I feel like I've got a different life now than I did 4 or 5 years ago. And that's enough for me. Just enough to know that I'm helping someone else now is a good thing. And I would say that would be the case for everyone else on the panel. The feeling of being helpful for your fellow man is good. And so not everyone can start there. You can't come out of your hurt locker hole and jump onto the interwebs and start telling everyone how to do it well or how to do it poorly. You've got to baby step your way into these things, just as I have been doing, just as we all have. And through the years, eventually, maybe you can tell people about all of your mistakes and some of the things that you did well. But until that point, there's just people that you should listen to. And so I'm going to highlight Gordo just because, he's a great example of this right now. I've watched Gordo go from 0 to 60 over a period of time that is trackable in my mind, where I can see him building 10 miles per hour until he's doing 60 miles an hour. And that didn't happen overnight. It was all hard-earned. And the beautiful part of a hard-earned journey is that when you get to a point where you feel that you can help others, you feel like you really can, because you earned it, because you ground your way to it. So I'm highlighting Gordo because I've watched him do that. But the crunch of my point is this. It's the only way to do things, Gordo. What you've done is the only way to do it. But now that you're in it, you're feeling the sting, you're feeling the friction, you're feeling like it's not moving fast enough for you. It's normal. You're doing a great job Don't let all of the frustrations of the folios that are dragging you down, or the systems that aren't working well with you, or people who don't want to play the game with you because they don't see the righteousness of your path. Don't sweat those details. Just keep on grinding and doing your thing, and it's going to play out the way it's supposed to. So that's my attaboy, and that's my prop you up, bro. So keep on keeping on.
Dig it. I don't have a ton to add. I have one little thing, a couple comments here. Bunzi says, do peptides next. We could do a conversation on that one for sure. Peptide pods, which could be interesting. 100% for Dan C. The only thing I have to add on this whole conversation is something my doc told me when I was struggling with training a horse, actually. And she said, they are the teacher, you were the student. And so I've taken that, just that little line, into kind of everything I do in life. When I look at jiu-jitsu, I look at it as they are the teacher, I am the student. Even if I'm teaching someone else, even if I'm trying to facilitate someone with a horse, even when I'm trying to manage my own issues, that issue is the teacher, I am the student. And if you can come at it from an angle of learning, I think it's going to help you immeasurably as you start to develop and become your better self. I really think that's true. So as we all continue to learn, build, and grow, we'll see y'all next time. Chimo. Thanks everybody for watching and being part of the collective. If this has sparked any thoughts or resonated with you, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us grow and keeps the conversation going. We'll see y'all next time.